Sweetheart, before I get off this Insta, let me say this. It'll never f***ing happen. You can go all there, everything y'all want to, every witch doctor in the motherfucking world. It'll never f***ing happen. Praise be to God. I am who I am because I am who I am. You see, I don't have to go on a route with a bunch of men
don't cut this off.
To create my sound, my image, my anything.
This is Immani Sharpless, a 26-year-old aspiring model and singer who would be found dead after a completely senseless argument over a parking space turned into a brutal execution in broad daylight. But what happened in those 5 terrifying minutes that turned an ordinary Saturday afternoon into a nightmare that would destroy multiple families forever? Let's get into it. On September 9th, 2023, around 12:15 in the afternoon, Immani Sharpless and her boyfriend Cordell McDuffie drove into the parking lot of a Home Depot on Nostrand Avenue in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. They were just running errands, but within minutes, this routine trip would spiral into unimaginable violence that would leave one person dead and another traumatized for life. The trouble started over something incredibly trivial: a parking spot. As McDuffie and Sharpless arrived at the lot, they noticed a man had taken the space they wanted. According to witnesses and police reports, a verbal dispute broke out between McDuffie and the other driver, a 58-year-old man from Maryland named Quincy James Davis. The argument was brief, and McDuffie, wanting to avoid escalation, decided to give up the spot and move on with his day. McDuffie went inside the Home Depot to shop, while Immani waited in their Hyundai Sonata. He had no idea that the man he'd just argued with was seething with rage, unable to let go of such a minor confrontation. Davis allegedly took the parking spot, briefly entered the store himself, then waited. He waited for McDuffie to return to the vehicle where his girlfriend sat, unsuspecting. When McDuffie came back to the car and started driving away, thinking the whole incident was behind them, Davis approached the driver's side of their vehicle. What happened next was captured in the panicked aftermath by witnesses who couldn't believe what they'd just seen. Davis opened fire on their vehicle, unleashing a barrage of bullets that shattered glass and tore through metal. McDuffie was struck multiple times in the knee and back, but Immani, sitting in the passenger seat, took the most devastating hit, and a bullet struck her directly in the head. Despite being shot himself, McDuffie's first thought wasn't his own injuries but Immani's. He watched helplessly as the woman he loved, his best friend, his support system, slumped unconscious in the seat beside him. The terror of that moment, the absolute helplessness of watching someone you love bleeding out while you're also wounded, is something no one should ever have to experience.
He came out of the car, he was shot in his leg and in his back, and the girl was in the passenger seat. She was slumped back, and her hands and her leg was moving a little.
After firing the shots, Davis fled the scene on foot, running south on Nostrand Avenue. In his haste to escape, he discarded the gun in a nearby dumpster along with his clothes, trying desperately to get rid of any evidence linking him to the shooting. He left behind his Mercedes-Benz in the parking lot, and inside that vehicle, police would later discover something bizarre: a Pennywise clown mask from the horror movie It. What that mask was doing there, whether it had any significance to the crime or was just a random item, has never been explained. Meanwhile, McDuffie, bleeding and in shock, drove the bullet-riddled car the wrong way down the street in a desperate attempt to get help. Witnesses watched in horror as he pulled up near a pharmacy, stumbled out of the vehicle, and frantically called for help, screaming that someone had shot his girlfriend. Both victims were rushed to Kings County Hospital, and McDuffie's injuries, while serious, were survivable. But Immani's condition was critical, as she was found unresponsive and unconscious with the gunshot wound to her head. Doctors worked desperately to save her life, performing emergency surgery to remove the bullet from her brain, and for 5 agonizing days she clung to life while her family prayed for a miracle. But on September 14th, 2023, Immani Sharpless died from her injuries. She was just 26 years old, and tragically, she died on the same day that McDuffie's father had passed away years earlier, adding another layer of devastating loss to an already unbearable situation.
I have not been the same. I have cried every single day since this has happened.
To understand the full weight of what was lost that day, you need to know who Immani Sharpless really was, beyond the headlines that reduced her to aspiring model shot over parking dispute.
I am the one, I am a queen, there was no in between. Hold up, let me switch my flow up.
Because Immani wasn't just an aspiring model, she was a vibrant, talented, deeply loved young woman whose presence lit up every room she entered. Born around 1997, Immani grew up in Brooklyn, raised by her mother, Alverna Sharpless, and her grandmother. She lived with her grandmother in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood, deeply rooted in her community. She worked as a teacher's aide in an after-school program at a Brownsville elementary school, where she poured her heart into working with children. Everyone who knew her in that role talked about how much she genuinely loved those kids, how her bright smile and gentle nature made her perfect for the job. But Immani had bigger dreams too. She was passionate about fashion, visual arts, modeling, and singing. Her mother, Alverna, would proudly show coworkers music videos that Immani had made, beaming with pride at her daughter's talent. Immani was enrolled in classes to support her creative career ambitions, actively working towards making those dreams a reality. She wasn't sitting around hoping for success to fall into her lap. She was putting in the work, taking steps every day to build the future she envisioned for herself. Her boyfriend, Cordell McDuffie, who was 35 or 36 years old, had been with Immani for years. They were planning their future together, actively fixing up an apartment so they could finally move in together. McDuffie had 2 young boys who needed him, and Immani was going to be part of that family unit. He called her his best friend in the world, his support system, one of the most beautiful people he'd ever known. The loss didn't just devastate McDuffie, it shattered Immani's entire family. Her mother, Alverna, who had raised her only daughter with such love and pride, was left trying to process the impossible. In interviews after the shooting, one friend described her as having a bright spirit and always had a smile on her face, someone with so much to live for. Another friend posted desperately on Facebook while Immani was in the hospital fighting for her life, begging God to let her best friend be okay, saying she had literally just spoken to her yesterday.
Police are investigating a double shooting in Brooklyn yesterday that escalated from a dispute over a parking spot. One person was left in critical condition.
Police and witnesses say 2 parties were fighting in the parking lot of a Home Depot when all of a sudden shots rang out. 2 people were hit and that shooter is still on the run. Police searched the inside of this white sedan riddled with bullet holes on the corner of Willoughby and Nostrand Avenue in Bed-Stuy, where witnesses say just after noon Saturday, they saw the panicked driver going the wrong way down the street.
He pulled up over there by the pharmacy right there, and he came out of the car and on the phone, and he was talking about somebody shoot his girl, but he didn't even say that he got shot too, which he did get shot in his leg and in his back.
Police say the 2 victims were shot over a dispute for a parking spot. The male victim was hit once in the right knee. The female victim was found unresponsive and unconscious with a gunshot wound to the head.
It hurt my stomach.
Police are still searching for the shooter, described as a man 5'6" tall, 160 pounds, last seen wearing a red hat, white shirt, and black jeans.
Condition in the hospital has now died. Police say Immani Sharpless was shot in the head after that argument over a parking spot. Happened around noon on Saturday in Bed-Stuy. A 35-year-old man was shot in the knee and survived. No arrests have been made.
A neighbor named Kanika Mobley described Immani as kind and mild-mannered, someone with a bright future ahead of her. A GoFundMe campaign was organized by Jessica Murphy, one of Alverna's co-workers, to help the family with medical bills and funeral expenses. In the campaign description, Murphy wrote that if Immani was anything like her mother, Alverna, she knew Immani was full of energy, life, love, and passion. The campaign highlighted Immani's passion for music and the creativity that defined so much of who she was. On September 23, 2023, Immani's funeral was held at New Frontier Baptist Church in Brooklyn. It was a sorrowful gathering where family and friends came together to mourn a life cut horrifically short. McDuffie was there, visibly distraught, weeping as he said goodbye to the woman who had been his entire world. What makes Immani's story even more heartbreaking is how ordinary that day started. She wasn't in a dangerous situation. She wasn't involved in any kind of criminal activity or risky behavior. She was literally just sitting in a car while her boyfriend ran an errand at Home Depot and did absolutely nothing to provoke what happened to her. She was an innocent bystander to an argument she wasn't even part of, and she paid for it with her life. McDuffie has been left to pick up the pieces of his shattered life. He's had to get both physical and mental therapy to cope with the trauma of what happened. He has 2 young sons who need his father, but he's struggling to be the man he was before because, as he said, Immani took a large part of him with her when she died. While Immani's family grieved and McDuffie struggled to survive each day without her, the question everyone wanted answered was simple. Would the man who killed her be held accountable? The answer, unfortunately, has been far more complicated and frustrating than anyone could have anticipated. The NYPD moved quickly to identify the suspect. Using witness statements and surveillance footage from the Home Depot, along with the abandoned Mercedes and the recovered gun, detectives identified Quincy James Davis as their primary suspect.
Community is relieved after the NYPD arrested the man they say is responsible for shooting 2 people in a Home Depot parking lot.
Police arresting 58-year-old Quincy Davis and charging him with murder and criminal possession of a weapon. Authorities say he shot 26-year-old Immani Sharpless and her boyfriend on September 9th over a parking dispute at the Home Depot on Willoughby Avenue and Sanford Street. Both Sharpless and her boyfriend were taken to the hospital. She tragically died from injuries.
Davis was described as approximately 5'6" tall, 160 pounds with a dark complexion, last seen wearing a red-hot white shirt and black jeans. On September 26, 2023, 17 days after the shooting and 12 days after Immani died, Davis was arrested in Brooklyn. When news of the arrest reached Alverna Sharpless, she expressed feeling very, very relieved. Finally, it seemed like justice might be served.
I see them bring him out, and it was the sound of his voice that really was the thing that I think moved me the most.
On October 20th, 2023, Davis was formally indicted by a grand jury. The charges were serious: second-degree murder, attempted murder, first-degree assault, and second-degree weapons possession. If convicted on the top charges, Davis faced 25 years to life in prison. He was held without bail, and Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez made a statement calling Immani's death senseless and saying it had left her family heartbroken. Quincy James Davis is a 58-year-old man from Gwinnett, Maryland, described in news reports as an ex-convict with a criminal history. According to records, he had prior convictions, including a 1986 case for robbery and weapons possession, for which he served 2 years, and a 1993 case for stolen property, for which he also served 2 years. But what he was doing in Brooklyn that day, why he was there at all, has never been explained. Here's where the story takes an absolutely bizarre turn that almost no one could have predicted. Months after the shooting, while Davis sat in jail awaiting trial, he reached out to Alverna Sharpless, the mother of the woman he's accused of murdering. And even more surprisingly, Alverna answered, and what developed from there is an unusual bond that has shocked many people who've heard about it. Davis and Alverna began having regular phone conversations from jail, during which they prayed together. In these calls, Davis has repeatedly insisted, "I did not mean to do it," claiming the shooting was unintentional. For Alverna, these conversations have become a source of unexpected peace. She's explained that she refused to allow resentment and anger to kill her as well, saying, "I could not allow this to kill me as well." By finding a way to connect with Davis through faith, she sought to process her grief in a way that doesn't consume her with hatred. It's an extraordinary act of grace that not everyone can understand or accept. Some might see it as forgiveness, others might see it as a coping mechanism, and still others might struggle with the idea entirely. but for Alverna, it's been her way of surviving the unsurvivable. However, both Alverna and Davis have something else in common beyond these phone calls: frustration with how long it's taking for the case to go to trial. By January 19, 2024, the case was in the discovery phase with no major updates. Time continued to drag on with procedural delays and court backlogs that are all too common in New York City's overwhelmed justice system. Then came July 11, 2025, when a judge made an announcement that left both sides stunned and frustrated. The setting of a trial date was being postponed to fall 2025, not the trial itself, but just the setting of when the trial would eventually happen. They couldn't even get a date on the calendar. Both Immani Sharpless and Quincy Davis appeared in court that day, both expressing their frustration with the delays. Davis appeared using a cane, citing the health toll that incarceration has taken on him. And here's where we are today. There are no public reports of a trial date being set, no news of a plea deal, no information about any resolution to this case. It's been over 2 years since Immani was killed, and her family is still waiting for their day in court. This isn't unusual, unfortunately. Court backlogs in New York City are notorious, with homicide cases often taking years to reach trial. But that doesn't make it any less frustrating for the families involved. Every delay is another day that Immani's loved ones don't get closure. Every postponement is another day that the system fails to deliver the justice it promises. The case also highlights a disturbing pattern across the country. Parking disputes turning violent and even deadly is not as rare as you might think. There was the July 2018 shooting of Marquise McLaughlin in Clearwater, Florida, where Michael Drechka shot an unarmed black man over a handicapped parking spot, eventually being convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 20 years. There was the February 2019 killing of former NFL player Anthony T.J. Cunningham in Aurora, Colorado, by a neighbor over parking, resulting in a second-degree murder conviction. And perhaps most similar to Immani's case, there was the June 2023 Annapolis, Maryland mass shooting where Charles Robert Smith shot 6 people, killing 3, over a parking dispute at a birthday party, with the case still dragging through the courts with mistrials and appeals as of late 2025. These cases all share common threads: minor, everyday conflicts that should have resulted in nothing more than harsh words, escalating into deadly violence because of easy access to firearms, because of inability to control rage, because of a culture that sometimes treats minor disrespect as something worth killing over. Immani Sharpless was a teacher's aide who loved working with children. She was an aspiring artist pursuing her dreams. She was a daughter, a girlfriend, a friend. She was 26 years old with her entire life stretching out before her. And she died because someone couldn't handle losing a parking spot argument. What do you think about this senseless shooting? Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.